Welcome back to Hot Takes and Deep Dives. This is Jess, and I am here with my returning friend, Kate Casey. Hey, Kate.
Hey. There's so much to talk about this week. It's kind of nutty.
How are
you?
you?
It's been a nutty week. I'm good. I'm feeling annoyed because some dipshits in Southern California had a gender reveal that went awry.
And they set off all these fires, right?
It's awful outside. There's like ash in the air, and it was supposed to be like 85 degrees all week, and like end of summer, go to the pool, and you don't even want to go outside because you get ash on you.
Oh my God. So I know you are our hometown hero in the OC. You're in Newport, right?
yeah, exactly.
So is this or is this going into LA County as well?
The smoke you can feel all the way into LA. Wow. It's bad. Probably parts of northern San Diego County you can see it too. It's just like a big orange fireball. Like the sun looks like a fireball, and then there's just this haze everywhere. It's terrible.
Jesus Christ.
So you can't even see the sun. It doesn't even poke through the clouds. So this is like day 6 or something. In the end, this is what I know to be true. No one really cares about the gender of your baby except for those inside your internal family and maybe 4 friends. Maybe. And that's pretty much it.
First of all, I want to tell people, like, my favorite thing about you have so much, like, you're married, you have like a very full family. How is it that whenever I text you, you text me immediately back?
I don't understand why people don't text other people back right away.
With your kids?
Yeah, it's not that hard to just text somebody back.
No. Kate, I text people right back because I have no kid. I have my dog. Like I you know what I mean? Like my life is much smaller than yours. I can text people right back. But I don't know. I love it.
Well, I feel like I'm trying to tell my kids, like, you have to, like, it's respectful to communicate and get back to people. Like, don't things lag on. I have a friend who only has 2 kids and doesn't work, and it will take like 5 hours to text me back. And I'm like, come on. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
So before we jump into all the Bravo stuff in this episode today, we're definitely going to talk about this new HBOMax documentary called Class Action Park, which is about this water park that was very popular in the 80s and 90s that I grew up going to, and basically is known as the world's most dangerous amusement park. So we're going to chat about that later in the episode. But first, a few quick hit hot takes for you guys. I'm obviously furious that Denise quit. Andy is saying that they tried to negotiate with her and just couldn't make it happen, which now that we know she's gone, it actually shocks me that she even tried to hammer out a deal to begin with. Like I just imagine she just flat out walked. Number 2, for me, the New York reunion ran circles around the Beverly Hills one. Beverly Hills for me, honestly, kind of a snooze fest. For me personally, I just need human interaction. At this point in my life, 7 months into this, I need human interaction. So the New York reunion for me just had all of the energy, down to the Easter egg at the very end with Dorinda and Tinsley. The fact that Tinsley managed to destroy Dorinda in the 11th inning and win the game was actually miraculous. Also, isn't it fascinating how weaker seasons can produce some of the best reunions, while great seasons produce some of the lamest reunions? Number 3, Katie Maloney from Vanderpump was just interviewed on ET today and admitted that she herself has no idea if the show is coming back. She said she wonders every day if they're going to get a call that the show is ever going to film again. By the way, she mentioned that the witches of WeHo are all friends again in the wake of the pandemic, if that sort of thing turns you on. So number 4, let's now go deep on the first look at the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City and OC, which are going to premiere in October and November. Let's do Salt Lake first. Kate Casey, how did we feel about the snow, the sleigh dogs, the fireplaces, the snowsuits, and actually the surprising amount of diversity in religion and race? It kind of put me in the right mood.
It looked like a bunch of improv actors that were thrown into a production of a made-up city. I mean, I don't understand how they all know each other. I mean, they're like, I'm an ex-Mormon. I'm Jewish who's converted to Mormonism. I'm converting to Islam. I'm like, in what world in Park City would they hang out? Because I've been to Park City and it's very small, and I feel like Mormons keep to Mormons. It seems like a big stretch of the imagination to believe that all these people have some sort of authentic connection. If they don't have an authentic connection, I don't think it'll work. If it's all about vapid stuff like luxury, 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 shoving religion down your throat, and on top of it, you feel like they're extra people who have studied Real Housewives for years and years and years, and they're performing like characters in an improv presentation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that, but I don't know. I mean, I hope that my hair gets blown back, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
I thought that the trailer was gorgeous to watch. It was so slick. The way they actually packaged it together, I was impressed by that. The actual, just whoever cut together the trailer did an amazing job. I love the ski motif. Like, I'm into that. I'm into like a winter setting. It'll provide just a different aesthetic. So I like all of that. To your point about them being improv actors, so it's been pretty well publicized that the original production company was sort of replaced halfway through by Shed, which does New York. And I wonder, well, I think it bodes well because Shed is really good at bringing out the comedy.
Yeah, they are. That's
you know?
true.
So I think that and they're really good at keeping things moving
That's true.
as well. So it's interesting because when both Dallas and Potomac, which were like the new cities that premiered in recent history, I remember people were like, we are not watching this. Like, nobody cared at all. It seems like, is it just because there's general fatigue and like we're so sick of the cities that we have so far? Is that why people are excited? Or is it because we're in a pandemic and we're like, oh my God?
It's because we're in a pandemic. If we weren't in a pandemic, I don't think people would care as much. But there's like, in terms of the Bravo network, there's not a lot of new content. So you're going back to the old shows. Like, a lot of people online are saying, oh, I just found out of Ladies of London. I just went back and watched this. It's just there's a lack of content on that network, but there's plenty of content outside of it. The weird thing for me is that I was in Park City when they were filming the show, and there's one of the housewives that I've developed a relationship with, like a friendship.
No kidding. Who? Which one?
I'm not going to reveal it.
Oh my God. Okay. Wait, why won't you say?
I'm going to tell you why, because I feel like when I do that, my plan is to book them for my show, and that there are vultures out there that will pounce. And so you're obviously not included in that list because you're my real normal friend. But I'll tell you offline.
Oh, that's so funny.
They seem like highly normal, and they seemed totally spit out of a tornado, kind of like, oh my God. So I was in Park City, and it was February, and I was supposed to meet up with her, but they switched the filming at the last minute, so I couldn't see her. But I was there, and it was like pretty bleak. I think that Park City looks the best 2 weeks during the winter, and then the spring is gorgeous. And I just feel like, I don't know if people really want to watch a show with people in heavy winter jackets. I think people want to see healthy, sprightly, peppy luxury. I don't know if people can withstand weeks and weeks and weeks of seeing people in huge jackets in the dead of winter.
So funny. You keep saying Park City. I mean, Park City is like an hour.
That's really where they all are. Park City. It's not Salt Lake City.
Oh, really? I mean, Park City's Sundance Film Festival.
That's where they all are. They're not in Salt Lake City.
So why do you think they're promoting this as Salt Lake?
Because if it was Real Housewives of Park City, people would be like, what? Because they think Salt Lake City, it's the cachet of Midwest-ish town, Mormon church. It's more catchy. All these women are actually in Park City.
Oh,
Park
that's
City
so interesting.
Park City is really where the wealthy live. And it's not even so much inside town. It's just right outside. That's where all the basketball players, anybody who has enormous wealth buys a home right around Park City.
I went to the Sundance Film Festival over a decade ago, and it was gorgeous. But yeah, it was during January. It was 3 days in January. It was beautiful.
But could you withstand 3 months of watching a show about that? I don't want to watch that. But you're talking to somebody that does not enjoy the snow. Like, I go to Park City and I stay. I'm like, I'm not skiing. Why would I do that? So I guess it's kind of like the Bravo shows about like après ski. I don't think it did that well because not only some of the characters were compelling, but I just don't think people really want to watch people in colder climates.
Colder climates? I mean, New York is freezing. Half the time you've seen Real Housewives of New York, you realize they're in like the worst weather of all time.
But they take them on these tropical island trips because they want to see them in bikinis and being drunk and acting dumb on a tropical island. Do people really want to watch Sonia in a winter jacket like in every episode?
It's
no.
So bad. Like I just know this from like just all the winter months. It's like not cute. Like the aesthetic is not cute. Wait, so you met whoever this cast member is, you just ran into her in Park City?
No. Another housewife said, because another housewife calls the other housewives and says, if you're in if you ever have trouble and you're like having a hard time with stuff, call Kate. Because they know that I will keep things private, and I'm kind of like inside just as you are. We're like in the world, but outside of the world, right?
So you're like their therapist.
Kind of, but it's more like, it's not really that. It's just like, I think more like my background in communications, where I end up kind of offering them like, okay, I think what you're trying to say is blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, oh, yes, that's exactly. It's like helping them kind of put things together so they can communicate better. I'm like, why am I not paid for this shit?
So funny.
And you know what's frustrating, and you'll appreciate this, is like, I've always thought, well, the good thing is then I can interview them because I have this personal relationship, but then you throw in the network has to give you permission, and then maybe the publicist is an axe to grind, or they hate podcasts or whatever. Or they're like, yeah, thank you for all your help. And then they go to someone else's show and you're like,
all right, I want to get what was your reaction to the OC trailer? And because I know that you know some of them, like remind me I remember you said you've known Bronwyn for a while. Remind me who you know from OC, and also like what did you feel about the trailer?
Kelly Dodd and I have so many mutual friends, so I know her that way. And she lives close to me. Like, I've seen her out. I'll see her at their Whole Foods and stuff. Elizabeth, the new cast member's boyfriend who's featured in the show, works for my husband. He works for his company.
Oh, wait, so this is Elizabeth Vargas, right?
Yeah. Shannon and I live in the same town, so I see her, and we have friends in common. Gina I met once, and she seemed to be in a frazzled state, so it's not like we were like kicking it back. And we have a friend in common, actually, who lives in Coto de Caza. So the OC is a small place because your friendships kind of, and especially because I have so many kids, I just tend to know lots of people because of my kids. And I've lived here a long time now. But when I saw it, it wasn't all, I talked to Bronwyn a lot, so I kind of knew what was going on throughout the season. I watched the trailer and then I thought about it. I do think that at first people thought, okay, it's going to be really sad to watch them in quarantine, because that's actually, people need to be mindful that they started filming and this happened pretty quickly. I think 3 weeks or something into filming.
Oh, that's soon. It
was really soon. So you have to give your hand to production, because this was an enormously difficult experience for them to figure out how to film. Right? And people want content. So give them the benefit of the doubt that they worked really hard to make this work. I was kind of like, it's not going to be that interesting. But then the more I think about it, I'm like, I think it is compelling that Kelly is marrying Rick, because I do think that's an interesting storyline, that she's now kind of got access to this Republican world, and whether or not how much changes. Like, I think that's a very relatable thing, that sometimes in their second marriages, they marry somebody, and if he works on a conservative network and is conservative, like, I don't know, does that mean that she changes her kind of like value system at all? I just think that's kind of interesting to watch. Mm-hmm. Bronwyn is going to come forward about a personal topic that I think a lot of people will relate to.
Is this about her son doing drag, right?
Not only that, there's something else.
Oh, okay.
So you'll get to see her son kind of I think that's going to be a small part of it, that he's kind of trying to figure out who he is. You're going to see her involvement in the Black Lives Matter and her trying to raise money related to COVID, and that she butts heads with the other cast members who are a little bit more conservative.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of feel like, the more I think about it, I'm like, I think that kind of mirrors the rest of the country, where you kind of have, you second guess some relationships because maybe you're like, well, you don't see eye to eye. So to see that kind of play out, like Bronwyn's taking her kids to protests and the others are like, don't you think that's not really a good idea? That's not safe. So the only thing I think is troubling is I don't know how much people are going to want to see months afterwards people struggling through quarantine.
Well, that's the whole crux of it, is will people want to watch the pandemic, like entertainment about the pandemic? We're not out of it.
Yeah, that's the only thing. But I will say that their personal stories, there is a possibility for that to be interesting. Like, okay, who else? Elizabeth is new.
What's her deal? Like, who is she?
I really don't know much about her. I mean, I've spoken to her a little bit. She has a background. She says she works in tech, which I'm like, I looked it up. I don't really think.
I was just gonna be like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I'm in tech. Like, tell me more. You're like, no.
Should I tell you this story?
Yeah.
Okay. This is okay. So we go to dinner every Saturday at the same restaurant because we're losers.
I like, no, but I'm the same way. I love that.
Okay. So we're sitting on the back patio and I see Elizabeth. And I'm like, I remembered meeting her before. Obviously, they're filming the show and I, know that she's on the show. So I said, hey, it's good to see you. I don't know if you remember me, but, I'm looking forward to seeing the show. And she's just sort of like kind of blowing me off. When someone's just like, yeah. And then she's just sort of walked away. And this very sweet young man walks up. And I say young man because he looked very, very young. And he starts talking to my husband. And they're talking and he said, well, I'm here. I asked him, oh, are you here with your, oh, Dan, my husband says, oh, he works for me. He works for the company. So I said, oh, so nice to meet you. Are you here with your wife? Are you here with somebody, your partner? Who are you here with? And he turns, he goes, oh, that's my girlfriend over there, and points to Elizabeth.
Okay.
Now, Elizabeth is walking through the restaurant as if she owned the joint. I've been going there for years. I was like, okay. She was just like, hey, girl. Hey, what's up? Hey, like mayor. I was just like, oh, okay. And I just thought, oh my God.
Like Ramona. That's how Ramona behaves in the Hamptons,
yes,
by the way.
Yes, like Ramona. I was just sort of like, worlds colliding. This is super weird. Oh, and then she comes back up, and that's when I introduced. I said, oh, remember I met you before? Like, I've got a podcast. And she was like, yeah. But I felt like she was just like, yeah, whatever, lady. And she just starts talking at us about how she's very successful in the tech industry. Very, very. And I was just like, huh? Now, she's standing next to my husband, who he's been in tech his whole life. And he's a software CEO. And we've never heard of this woman ever in our lives. We're just sort of like, huh?
Did you look her up on LinkedIn?
Yeah, no, I think afterwards we did. We were like, what? She just was like, just so you know, he and I are in tech. And and work is very important to both of us. We are workers. We are in tech. And it was like talking in circles and like, and we're big time. It was just like, we're big time. And she didn't take the moment to ask like who Dan was. Like, forget about me. But I was like, I'm thinking in my head, she's going to find out from her boyfriend, like this guy like owns the company I work for, and she's going to feel like an idiot. But she just kept talking. And it just struck me as like, she is a good housewife. Because a crazy housewife is not like us. Like, we're going to sit there and ask questions. She's like a Ramona, like goes through the room, assumes that everybody knows who she is, assumes that she is the highest ranking person, zero interest in conversation. And I just thought, is she going to go home and then like ask him about who he met? But then I thought, I don't think she cares. So I kind of feel like she might be great. Well, I don't know if people are going to like love. You know what it is? I feel like people hate these housewives, but it's like they're not going to be your friends in real life. They're cast because they're crazy. They're like highly irrational, reactionary, self-involved people. I mean, with the exception of a couple who I really like. But for the most part, they don't give a shit about you. casting people, I think, do a great job with some of these shows. And I think that this woman is like, she's also very mysterious. And I think that makes a great housewife, where you're like, we have got to dig into this more. Like, are these stories adding up? And I feel like the audience is going to do that with her.
As far as Kelly Dodd goes, do you think this is going to be kind of her Dorinda season, where they're just going to give her enough rope to just hang herself at the end?
No, I mean, isn't Kelly always highly reactionary? I mean,
yes,
I don't know.
Yes, but everything she's been saying in the wake of the pandemic and Black Lives Matter, like all of that stuff.
Are they going to protect her?
I don't think they will this time.
Well, they shouldn't, because that's the point of the show.
Right.
You should show people as they are, and that's who she is. I mean, the fact of the matter is, she's marrying somebody who's on a very conservative network. You can't tell me that that's not going to happen, that somebody is around someone all the time. They're going to change their view on things. I think you see the manifestation of somebody who is melding into the partner. I don't know. I mean,
did you hear that it's going to be just 12 episodes? Did you hear that?
I think that's right. I think 13 is what I heard.
I think that's a great thing.
It just was not, they couldn't film for so long. There were moments where they were like, maybe somebody could go up to the roof and film them in a semicircle in the street.
Oh, God. But as far as like the 12 episodes, like I think every Housewives season, cap it at 12, cut the fat, get rid of the filler. I want like a lean and tight. That is how the first, that's how it used to be.
You want that, but a network wants more money.
Well, yeah.
So that's not going to happen. You know what I'm beginning to realize too? I don't think that these production houses really give two shits what the audience thinks. I don't think it matters. I don't think if we picketed outside of their offices and said, fire this person, I hate this storyline, they know how to make good TV. So it doesn't really matter what everybody else thinks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the reason why Teddy will go on for 4,000 more seasons.
See, I don't mind her that much. Maybe because I know her personally. I don't like. Oh my God! I interviewed her, and people like the hate mail. How could you? I'm like, that's the point of my show, to interview people on the shows. Like, what do you want me to do? Or then I interviewed Candace from Potomac, and the day that the episode came out was the day that all these like tweets from 10 years ago were revealed, where she was like making comments about gay men, and then she was like saying shitty things on the show. And I had this like very earnest, like nice conversation with a normal person. So I'm like, guys, give her a chance. Like, hear her story. But people were like, we're not having it, Kate. Sorry, we hate her. I'm like,
okay, Denise quitting. Like, were you like, yeah, obviously?
Yeah, I don't think she wants to be on the show. I don't think she wants the commitment that it requires, the time commitment. And I think she already got out of it what she wanted, which was more job opportunities, which clearly are happening.
She has never been more famous.
So why, like, she doesn't need to be on the show anymore. She hit it. She's probably the smartest person in the world.
She hit it out of the fucking park.
Lots of people stay 3, 4, 5 because they want to wait for the third season to make the real money. And she's like, I don't need your salary because I'm going to book. She's going to book Hallmark movies back to back to back, probably come out with some sort of like makeup line. Why stay another? She doesn't need to. And then all the lunatics of the world who are obsessed, like, are treating her like a demigod, which is so weird. I'm like, she's just a reality star.
I mean, for what it's worth, I was fuming when this news came out. I was really pissed because I'm just like, where are we going? Like, this makes me think that Garcelle is going to jump. She already has this other job, and she had already said that, or one of them said that they're not doing it without the other. Like, that Denise was her one real friend on the show. It's just what we're going to keep doing this cycle where they're all going to run.
Remember, in the entertainment industry, a lot of people have been out of work for a year. Lots of people are taking jobs because they need it. So I think we're not in like the most certain times right now. People are going to come back.
Oh, you think Garcelle will come back?
Why wouldn't she come back? Like, she's just beginning to get a lot of opportunities from it.
I mean, I hope.
To walk away. And by the way, I want to see that on the show. I want to see behind the scenes of the real,
Oh yeah, yes. I thought that too would be like really good fodder for the show.
And like, it's important. She needs to be on the show because I think she's like a real steady voice.
Same.
I did think a lot of the scenes that were not included that they showed later, like added scenes that were shown, put into perspective a lot of the conversations that she had. Like the one with Lisa about dancing,
Yes.
and then you find out like what happened before that point was brought up. Like I think her opinions and her perspective and her tone is so needed because it's very measured, and they need somebody like that.
Yeah, 100%. People are saying like, oh, like get Kathy Hilton in there. Kathy Hilton will never do it. Paris was just on Andy's show yesterday, and she was like, my mom is never going to go on that Beverly Hills Housewives. She's like, my mom's not interested in the drama like that. She's like, she's really fun. She's not going to go on. But I don't know what they're going to do casting, because they just keep with Rinna, the sort of like group that they have. They're like Rinna, now Erica, unfortunately, is in it. They just keep running. Like they ran LVP off. They ran Denise off. They're just going to get
see, I disagree with you and all of the crazy people who are like, these mean girls, they're running people off. I'm like, no, they're not. It's just like it's a show. You show up, you reveal everything about your life. If you're kind of an asshole and you don't reveal everything, they're going to start getting annoyed. Now, the caveat is this. People are like, well, Kyle needs to reveal all the... She can't legally. She can't. They're in lawsuits. They are not able to. Evolution cannot film that because of legal matters. Like, it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Dorit and PK, their financial stuff, I wish I could tell you why they're so secretive, but for some reason they're not able. There's a reason behind all these things. It's not like evolution is like, I'm going to make this person look great and this person a jerk. They all think that they're nutty in their own way. That's why they were selected for the show. But there are constraints when you're producing a show. It's just the way it goes. They want people like Sutton who can fly on the private jet.
Right.
They all fill a role. Kyle fills a role. She was a child actor. She knows everybody in Hollywood because she grew up there. That's a role that she fills. There's a purpose to all these castings.
So now that they have to fill Denise's slot and probably add in some new people, like what type of person should they be looking for? Obviously not another actress.
Well, it's already happened because I was going to suggest somebody and they were like, oh, don't even worry about it. We're already done. So that's already in the can.
Really?
So I'm sure they're just they got a friend of a friend. Like, okay. I think they're very good in that franchise about getting people that there's like some sort of, like, it makes sense. That person knows somebody. Whereas other ones, it's like, I get that feeling in Potomac where it's like plopped, like in the middle of the show. Like, I mean, you're like, what? How did that person know that person? Like
who?
Well, I mean, Wendy and Karen obviously have a background because they sit on a board. Yes. And Wendy and Candace are friends, but if you were to walk outside the show, would Karen and Ashley ever know each other? Like, what's their connection?
No.
So that, and by the way, I lived in DC. Geographically, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
Why would Karen, who lives over here, be friends with Robin, who basically lives in Baltimore? And Giselle lived in Baltimore. Why would she move down towards DC? Like, it doesn't, it's like if I think I've said this to you before. It's like if you had a show, Real Housewives of New York City, or New York, but it was like, somebody lives in Bedford, somebody lives in Staten Island.
Oh, yeah.
And the other person lives in Manhattan. And you're like, and they'd have, like, they're 20 years apart in age. What it doesn't make any sense.
Somebody recently was like, yeah, like, why don't they get somebody in Riverdale? And, like, I wrote this person back and I was like, Riverdale is, like, a different universe. It's too far. It's too suburban. Nobody would ever know. Somebody who Leah lives in the financial district. There's no way in hell. You could not be further apart.
Totally. Remember when Cindy had a house in Quogue?
Yes.
And Ramona ripped on her? It's like that. Wait, what? I mean, huh?
Well, that's just Ramona being an asshole. But yeah, I mean, it's just like not in the Hamptons. It's not.
I mean, it's just, here's the thing. We're so savvy. The audience is so savvy. I mean, it worked in the early days, like, because you just assumed because they were fresh. All 7 people were fresh. It's like they must have known each other. But now we're doing too much internet research. And then you're in Facebook groups and people are like, oh, I know Sarah because she went to school with me at blah, blah, blah. And she would never be friends with. There are too many investigators that are putting pieces together and are like, this doesn't add up.
Speaking of shit that doesn't add up, what did you think of the 3rd season of Selling Sunset?
It was good. they filmed it all together. So it was,
Yeah.
so they filmed it over like a certain period of time, and then they packaged it as seasons 2 and 3. I thought it was good. I'm friends with Christine, so I'm a little bit more biased. Like,
but she's the only one with like a strong, like she's the only like real character that's on there. The rest of them are kind of just filling space.
Like super funny, cool, and normal.
Does she do deals?
I don't, Instagram deals probably.
No, like real estate deals.
Oh, no. She's like, I don't really want to sell real estate. I want to be a TV personality.
Right.
But she'll say it. That's what I love about her. She's like, you think I really want to sell that 4-bedroom home? And then, I'm like, you please tell me you don't wear those dumb heels and those dresses to sell a house. And she's like, no, of course not. She gets in a lot of trouble because she breaks the fourth wall all the time and will like say things, and the show's always annoyed with her. She's like, yeah, I don't want to be a real estate agent. Like, I want to be on a television show. I would love to be on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And they're like, hello, you're supposed to be promoting our show.
What is your favorite of the real estate shows that are out there, like $1 Million Listing?
I don't like $1 Million Listing shows at all because I know that they use the same casting agency for Selling Sunset as $1 Million Listing, the prospective buyers. So it's like, this isn't like real, these are not real deals. I mean, yeah, it's nice to look at these houses, but I don't even know if this house is even for sale. And I just get tired of the whole thing of like, let's throw an over-the-top party with like fire eaters and
I hate that.
Rhythmic gymnastic baton twirlers so they can sell the house. I'm like, this isn't normal. And I also don't find some of the real estate agents to have really great personalities. So I get annoyed by watching any of those. Selling Sunset was amusing because it was cinematically pretty. Like, it was really well shot. But I don't know if I could watch a lot of Chrishell. Like, she feels like a pageant contestant.
I do think I'm in the minority of people who I much prefer $1 Million Listing, like New York and LA, over Selling Sunset. Me personally, I don't want to watch these like Barbies and the heels and I find that all like really like I'm just so not interested. Not one part of me is like compelled to really lean in. Like it's so artificial and I can see through it. Whereas I do find it's so funny you're saying you don't find the personalities of the $1 Million, like Ryan Serhant, Frederick Eklund, Josh Flagg, even Josh Altman. I think I like their personalities.
I only like Ryan and I only like Frederick. I cannot stand the LA people. I find them all to be really difficult to watch. And I think Josh Flagg is a dick.
Have you had experience with him?
Well, maybe this is my own like issue. Is I asked him to be on the show, and it was like, maybe this was like 3 years ago because I've had my show 4 years. It was like, he thinks there's absolutely no point to podcasts. He thinks they're really stupid. Even if you thought that is that professional?
Wait,
is that how you
said that exact same thing to somebody who I think was like literally interviewing, like mid-interview on a podcast, said that literally that exact quote, Jax Taylor.
Oh, I believe that.
But I have to thank you because you gave me the greatest gift of the summer, which was the recommendation to watch Class Action Park.
So good.
This is what I really want to get into. Now, I grew up going to Action Park. Anybody who lived in the tri-state area grew up going to Action Park. Now, you grew up in Pennsylvania, right?
Yes, Philly suburbs.
So were you going?
My older sister's 4 years older than me. She went, but we had the commercials play all day long. So I was very familiar with Action Park. Yeah.
So let's give basically like the general overview. So this is a documentary that's on HBOMax, and which is actually easier to sign up for than you would think. Like literally just like make a login and like you have access to like HBO's entire library. It's like quite easy, and you can like install the app on your smart TV as well. It's like easy to do.
Yeah, that's what we did. Yep.
And so basically, Action Park was this theme park. The big theme parks when I was growing up in the tri-state area were, you had Action Park, which was like the first water park of its kind. And this is like in the 80s, I was born in 82 and like I grew up all throughout the 80s. On Long Island, you had Adventureland, which they eventually made a movie about. The guy grew up on Long Island, the filmmaker, and he made a movie, Adventureland. So my dad took me to Adventureland like my entire childhood. I love that place. You had Dorney Park.
Oh, we went there.
Which was like Hershey Park. Was it the same thing as Hershey Park?
Doherty Park was in Allentown, and then you have Hershey Park, and then you had Dutch Wonderland, which was in Lancaster, and then you also had Great Adventure.
Oh, Great Adventure was like
and huge. Then you had Six Flags, and you also had Sesame Place when you were really, really little.
Oh, I have a picture of me and my cousin in the garbage cans.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Sesame Place is still around. My friend lives in Bucks County and just took her son.
Okay, yeah. I'm from Chester County, so yeah.
Wow. So your brother went to Action Park. So I guess
my sister, older sister.
Your older sister went.
She was like super cool, still is super cool, and she would go with her friends. Mm-hmm. I watched that and I couldn't stop laughing because it kind of just brought back all of that, and also everyone's accents. And also, it just reminded me about why I love East Coast people, like their senses of humor. Like the one guy, Chris Gethard, I thought he was so funny.
Amazing.
Allison Becker from old school MTV days. Like, it's just their way of looking at the world and their sense of humor. And
I would say if you guys are like Jersey leaning, like if you like the Housewives of New Jersey and like you like that vibe, the entire movie has like a very strong point of view and personality. But basically the story is that this water park was built by this guy who hated rules, hated laws, and he made up a fake insurance company so that he never got sued for any injuries or anything that was going on at the park. It was run by teenagers. I mean, listen, as kids, like we all worked at camps or at parks to make money when we were like in high school. And so everyone running the place, they were like 14-year-olds that were like drunk and high, like obviously, that lived in fucking bumblefuck Jersey, you know, like Action Park was like in New Jersey.
It was in the sticks. And then you had rides that were not actually created by engineers. It was like people who had no idea what they were doing, and then they would like have test dummies do it, and then they would tweak it a little bit. It was a disaster, but it was pretty cheap. Like I think he said it was like
$10 to get in.
Oh yeah, I mean, now that I look back, it's like I live near Disneyland, and I'm like, how do some of the people afford this? This is like ridiculous. The cost of the ticket, and then you get in there and the merch, and then you're buying food. And Action Park was really affordable, and that's why a lot of people went there. And then also, they had these rides and the stories that everybody's going to laugh really hard. Like, for example, they had this one ride or one part of the park where you could dive off a cliff, but you were supposed to put your arms across, kind of like in an X position, and then jump off and wait until the person who went before you to kind of swim away. But there were you had 14-year-olds who were high, so people would just jump in. They wouldn't do it correctly. They wouldn't wait for the other person. So other people were landing on you. And at one point they say, oh yeah, somebody would walk out of the pool area and they'd have one shoulder higher than the other because they broke their collarbone. And you just can't stop laughing because you just think, how this is so absurd. This would never happen now.
It would never happen now. Just imagine Trump like designing rides for like a water park. Like really, that's like all you need to like envision in your mind. But they said that he would collaborate with like, somebody who was actually going to build the ride, but then he would go in and tweak it to make it more, to like amp it up. Like for example, they had a ride called the Colorado River Ride, and he insisted and made it simulate Colorado River Class 4 rapids. Which is so fucking insane. I remember going on that ride and love it. But they're not rides. They're like, because they're nobody, you're not like getting in a roller coaster and then the thing goes. Like you're self-guided. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't remember any lifeguards at all. Like zero. And also too, there was also later in the 90s, a water park on Long Island called Splish Splash out in Riverhead.
Oh, I know it. Yep.
I love that. That one was sort of like the normal version of Action Park. Like you weren't going to die at Splish Splash. You were just going to like have fun and like have pretzels and stuff. Whereas at Action Park,
I remember those commercials for Splish Splash.
Yeah. Exit 70 off the LIA. Yeah. And, yeah, you weren't going to, but my favorite quote in the movie is when that one guy goes, death was like part of the experience, that like you might die here. So I remember, so after you texted, you're like, you have to watch. I watched it like straight through one sitting. And the next day I went over to my best friend's house, my best friend from growing up, and he's still my best friend. And he didn't even know this documentary came about. He's like, that's so weird. He's like, I was recently like researching Action Park. He's like, 'cause I didn't understand how my dad, like, how did they allow us? It's almost like the trauma from like back in the day.
Yeah.
Of like, why were they abusing us in the eight? Like they were just, it was just a free for all. He told me that he broke a rib on an experience there called the human slingshot.
Oh my God.
And because I sat down at his house and like I watched the whole thing again with him, and he was just like, I was laughing throughout, but he was more like, I think he was traumatized, like from his childhood.
I can't believe my parents let me go.
Yeah. He was like, yeah, he's like, yeah, like I broke a rib. And the thing was, when you break a rib, you don't know it or feel it really until the next day. It's not something where like you're like, oh my God, I can't walk. Like you can live your life with a broken rib. You just feel it later on. So like it's not like he didn't like go to the infirmary there. Thing I do remember is that orange spray. They would make the little
iodine,
the little shack. So basically, if you got injured at Action Park, they had like the nurse's office or whatever, the infirmary, were like these little like shit shacks, and they would draw in a circle. They drew like a white circle, and like they would play a game with you, like while they sprayed your little cut, which was, they were spraying it with like a mix of iodine and alcohol. It was just like this orange color, which I also remember that same shit they had where I went to camp. If you had, and it burned like hell.
I believe that everybody was using that in like the 80s and 90s for sure.
So like they encouraged you to like, they're like, see if you can, because it burned so much, if you were able to like stay within this like little 10 by 10 radius, like not like jump out of it, you like, they're like, see if you can just stay here, but like you'd be like screaming, like it like really hurt. Funnily enough, so where I went to day camp as a kid and with my cousin, and I went for years. I'm saying from when I was like 4 years old. I went as a camper from when I was 4 all through my teens. And then once I hit a certain teenage, once I was maybe 15, I started working at the camp at the pool. I was like a lifeguard, and I like taught kids how to swim. Like I was really into like the water stuff. And my uncle ran what they called the teen tour portion of the camp. Basically, he ran for like 20 years because he was a teacher. So this was like his summer job. My uncle ran the trips part. So he spent like 20 years taking campers every day. Like you'd go to Great Adventure, you'd go to Action Park, you'd go sleep away at like different places in the Catskills. And so I was at my family's last weekend, and I pulled my uncle aside. I'm like, can we go deep about Action Park? I'm like, tell me every memory you have. And he said that he doesn't really remember people getting injured. He's like, yeah, I remember that ride, which I think it's the Alpine Slide.
Yep.
He's like, yeah, I remember people getting like burns on their legs from like if it went off track, or I actually think that's the one where the guy died. I was like, Mark, like my uncle. I'm like, Mark, like people died. He's like, yeah, I don't remember that. I'm like, yeah, I know nobody died on your watch, but like they died.
Oh my God.
It was interesting hearing it from his perspective, because like he's like an older guy. This was so long. This is like, he did it for 20 years, and now he's probably like at least maybe he's like 20 years out of it, because he's retired now. But it was interesting. I was like, what was going on? Like you were doing this all through the 80s. Interesting.
And also, did he drink? Because being around teenagers must have been a nightmare.
I doubt he did, because he would have gotten fired. He was the director of the teen tour. I mean, I don't think he could have drank. No. But I remember our counselors. Eventually, I worked on. Did I work? No, I think I did the teen tour, and I remember my counselors definitely drank. They were like high school kids. They were like about to go to college. Obviously. So that's that. Definitely watch that. And the last thing, I want to give you the floor to tell people about The Vow on HBO.
Oh my God, it's so freaking good. All right, there's this cult called Nexium. I've been following them for several years. I love anything to do with cults, and I came across this cult, and I'd been following this blog, which I recommend everybody check out, called The Frank Report. And his name's Frank Parlato, and he was hired by NXIVM, which was this self-improvement group, to do work for them, and then ultimately kind of figured out that the guy running it was a piece of shit. And then they got into litigation because the guy that ran it sues everybody. So he has been writing for years about the backstory of what's going on within the group. And it's super juicy. And even with like my most recent child, like after she was born, I'm like staying up late into the night, feeding. I would be scrolling through all the stories. This is why it's compelling, because you have the self-improvement group, and we've all known people that get sucked into this bullshit. So the people sign up, and they're usually at some sort of like chapter in their life where they're transitioning jobs. They're feeling kind of like stuck.
It reminds me a lot of Landmark Forum.
It is just like Landmark. Yeah. There's a lot of the same language. And so you pay $5,700 for a 5-day course, and then you're sucked in, and they're asking you very personal information, and they're making you believe that you've made these very big breaks, these epiphanies. And there's all this language, like for example, they called an integration. That's something that like you make a believe in your brain, and because of your limited belief, you believe something about yourself, and you need to have somebody go back to the EM, which is like the emotional meaning, to figure out why you believe that about yourself. So if you see it on paper, you're like, oh, okay, I've been believing for all these years that I'm incapable of doing X, Y, Z, and now I believe that I can, and that's a big deal, so I should keep taking these courses. Mm-hmm. So the guy running the whole thing is a big fat liar. He told people that he had one of the highest IQs documented in Guinness Book of World Records, that he was a jiu-jitsu champion as a child, that he could speak 5 languages before he was 3. This was before Google days, so people just would buy it hook, line, and sinker, and they would keep taking courses, and they have sashes like in the Church of Scientology. Like
you would like up level, like it made you think that you were achieving something, but you really weren't.
So what the focus of this documentary is about, how within the group there were a group of women that created a subgroup called DOS, which basically works out to like a slave master thing. And at the top of the pyramid is the guy who runs the cult. His name's Keith. And right under him is this girl, Allison Mack, who was on Superman and a couple other shows.
Smallville.
Smallville. And so under Allison, she has maybe 6 people. And those 6 people have 6 people that work under them. And they are all doing labor for the people that are their slaves. And this is the whole system. And within that system, you have to all go back up to the top and sleep with Keith. Yeah, so a couple of these people came forward, and then there was a New York Times expose. And what I love about this is that it's shot by this husband and wife couple who have been, they're Emmy Award winning. They do a masterful job in explaining the group, the minutiae within the group, and then telling people's stories in the most compelling way. And it's like you're at the edge of your seat of every episode. So it's every Sunday. So if you haven't watched it, you can jump in and watch the first 3 episodes. But it's like you're so hooked in. It's so much better than Housewives. It's so much better. It's like,
well, it's a real it's a documentary television show. Yeah, what's going to be like total of 9 episodes?
9 episodes. I'm like, this is a gift. And the other thing that I like about it is it seems to have all been filmed as some of the people were becoming, what is it, defactors? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
So you're just like, you're feeling it's like in real time. You're seeing them escaping.
Because they became so entangled in the structure like of the organization, like within NXIVM, they had to like very carefully plan their exit.
It reminds me of like Katie Holmes leaving Tom Cruise.
Totally.
With the bat phone and the apartment, and all of that. It reminds me of that.
If you guys are into this stuff, you should also watch the Bikram yoga documentary on Netflix.
Oh, that one was really good.
That was amazing. Because
have you ever seen Holy Hell?
Aaron Martin recommended Holy Hell to me.
Oh my God! That if you like Bikram yoga, this is totally up your alley.
Okay. Yes. Holy Hell.
God! I'm excited for you to watch that. But then I also want you to watch this documentary called The Imposter. Have you seen that yet?
No, only from you. So what's that about?
Oh my God, you have so much homework. Okay, Holy Hell and then The Imposter. So The Imposter is about, in 1994, this 13-year-old boy disappears from a Texas town. He has blonde hair, blue eyes, a Texas accent. There's reason to believe he was murdered, but there's no body. So the police just kind of give up. Well, 3.5 years later, somebody in the middle of Spain says, I am the boy. But this guy has a thick French accent, brown eyes, and clearly dyes his hair. Still, the family has a sister fly out, pick him up, fly him back to Texas, and he moves right back into the kid's house. And so you're hearing this guy tell the story of how he was the imposter. Like, I totally lied. This is how I did it.
But why? What was his motive? Why did he do that?
Oh, he gets off on it. He had pretended to be so many different missing children. But the thing that you're like, why is this family believing him when he's like, he has brown eyes and he's told this cockamamie story about how he was kidnapped by the police and they put a solution in his eye to change his eye color. And you're like, who would believe this? And then at about the halfway mark, it clicks and you're like, this shit's crazy. So I'm not going to spoil it.
Where can I watch The Imposter?
Amazon Prime.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, so guys, Class Action Park, that's on HBOMax.
Holy Hell is on Netflix, by the way. The Vow's on HBO.
Awesome. You're the best. Like, for people who just and also, you know what? I love following you on Twitter because every week you put up, like, here's what to watch. Like, things. Yeah. You know, I love that. So tell everyone, like, where they can follow you and listen to your show.
So Reality Life with Kate Casey is available anywhere where you listen to podcasts. Facebook group is Reality Life with Kate Casey. Twitter is @KateCasey.
Let us know when you watch some of these shows. Like, DM me when you watch Class Action Park. I want to, like, know your feedback. So yeah, hit me up with just what you think about Class Action Park. You guys can follow me, JessXNYC. Follow the show account, Hot Takes Deep Dives, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, guys.